Good evening. Welcome to the Extreme Movie Show. I'm your host, RDV. Flying solo a little bit until Rob should show up soon. If not, if you guys haven't done so, please click like and subscribe. Let us know down in the comment section down below after the video if you enjoy this series or not, what your thoughts on this. But the new Amazon, I'm sorry, not Amazon Plus. I'm used to reviewing Amazon, but a mistake. It's Apple TV Plus. Has a new series out by based on the books by Martha Wells. It's supposed to be a science fiction comedy. It's a futuristic, society, or it takes place in space. Kind of like for those who watch The Expanse, everything was all on different planets and stuff. This is about a robot. literally much. Alexander Skarsgård, you know him from Tarzan. He was Eric Northman on True Blood. Is it a new lead in the series where he plays like a bunch of robots, basically called Sex, and his job made function is to protect humans. We come across him in the very first episode where he pretty much is at a mining facility. They just finished up, and he's all the humans are being obnoxious. And I gotta say from right from the get-go, all the humans in this series are written obnoxious. I don't know if that was intended to, or that's the way it comes off on the actual TV for that. But in the books, I've not read the books. There's a 7-book series that Martha Wells wrote, and so far, from what I've been reading from people online, they're saying is that it actually has been faithful to the books. So with that being said, we'll dive into whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, because normally it is. But getting into the episode here, he basically is self-aware, and while he's been on his jobs, he's been hacking away at his governor program, which pretty much enables him, or the governor program prevents him from basically attacking humans or doing what he wants to do. And one day he actually does it, and he's like overjoyed. And a lot of this show is Alexander Skarsgård doing his own self-narration and just describing the humans around him and the whole situational awareness. And so he hacks his program. He's able to be free, and he's like, I have no idea what do I call myself now. See, he's like, I'll call myself Freedom Bot. But he's like, I don't know. But so he does the cliche, I'll call myself Murderbot, because that's what he does. His job is to basically attack and protect humans, or attack monsters and protect them, And so he gets assigned to this essentially hippie group, who also stars in this series. Has David Dastmalchian. We know him from he was a Polka Dot Man in the Suicide Squad movie for James Gunn. He was also recently in the Interview with the Devil, or Late Night with the Devil. So he's in here, and anyway, so Alexander Skarsgård is basically sold off to this hippie group, basically, who wants to use him for protection. And he's kind of stuck with them. And for the most part, for the very first episode, he just talks about how he just can't stand humans, how fragile, how stupid they are. And his whole entire idea, he basically wants to get away from them. But he can't, because he's on a planet with them right now. They're doing some geology stuff there, and there's even they show a scene where he murders all of them, but then it's all in his head, because he says, if I kill them, I have no way off this rock, and then I'll be hunted down and stuff. So he's basically biding his time. So what he does in order to pass time, he's discovered satellite TV or satellite cable, and he's watching all these shows. One of them, the more popular shows he's watching, is called The Rise and Fall of Sanctuary Moon. And then it has guest stars John Cho, in kind of like a Star Trek show. And it's a drama about a guy, a ship captain, who falls in love with a robot, and it's over the top hokey. It's not the best. This show has some woke elements. I know people roll their eyes when we say woke, but there's no other way to describe it. It's supposed to be so far in the far flung in the future that I guess it's become the norm now, that even in with all advanced technology, there is well, there's always gonna be gays and lesbians, whatever, or same queer or whatever you would call it. It's weird because it's for me is like it kind of pulls you out because normally when you watch a lot of shows you don't see that, but now I guess it's being heavily interjected. I admit I don't watch a lot of newer television. Me and just turning 40, I've been going back and watching a lot of older stuff, but it doesn't really pull me out. What does pull me out though is that these humans are just kind of like over the top diverse. If you look at the cast down there below there, that is the most diverse cast I've ever seen in a sci-fi show before. And they're all pretty much throughout the series they're afraid to offend one another. If one of them says like, "Well, that's toxic," or the other one says like, it's like, "Oh, why would you do that?" And it's kind of get offended at, and like the guy's constantly, one guy's in there, he's apologizing, guy on the bottom, and there's three ways in here. It's a point where it's just like I can relate with Alexander Skarsgård, Murderbot, where I would spend my whole time watching TV while I try to ignore all of them, because fortunately for him, he's connected to all the security cameras. He's able to see as far as everything that goes on, including the three-way, the two lesbian couple, the lesbian couple, and the guy on the bottom, which has got her arm on him. They're great with the three-way. He makes a joke about it. He's like, "Oh dear God!" He quickly averts his eyes, and and the drama happens in the first episode where he's trying to hide the fact that he's more sentient than he is. He's got and he has David Dastmalchian. I'm probably gonna butcher his name all night, but forgive me. But he doesn't trust him. He thinks that that he's not who he says he is. He thinks he's malfunctioning. Maybe because what happens? Well, the two scientists are out, and they're basically working on underground and taking two samples. Murderbot is up on the cliff and detects seismic movement. And a giant worm, basically, centipede with two heads, pops out, attacks one of the scientists, the one that's on the right, and he ends up having to go down there and save him. And I gotta say, there is one cool thing about design for Alexander Skarsgård's costume. I know it's probably not the best, but I love this design here. Normally, for the most part, all the sec units wear their helmets up. They don't show their face. So we see him kind of battle damage here, tough. And after he basically he has these twin arm cannons, pulse cannons that shoot out his arms, wrists, and he's able to take down the centipede after it swallows him. And he grabs the doctor who's injured, and because he's in shock, he basically uses what training he has. Well, he learned from the show, actually, his drama show, and takes his helmet off and talks to her, asks her about her kids, and just weird questions. And of course, everything's being recorded. So after he does it, saves her life, the crew is shocked to see that he was doing that because it's not he's in a basic, outdated unit. He's not equipped for that kind of dialogue, and training. So after that, after they're all suspicious, the next episode, we got David basically talking to Alexander Skarsgård, and just like trying to learn more about him. Well, the woman who's in charge of the crew, what's her name? Hold on a second. Mensah, she pretty much goes out. She says, "I'm gonna go out by myself," and along the way, because we witnessed in the first episode that she was kind of having like panic attacks. Well, she goes out there. She's gonna climb the mountain, and is listening, and she's taking things. And they left. Well, they basically ordered Alexander Skarsgård character to stay behind, which he was kind of annoyed by. He's like, gee. He makes comments about it. It's like, "You're gonna leave me behind? That's stupid. You're gonna get yourself killed." And he's like, "Well, I guess it's one less person." But he's like, "But then if I fail my job, they're gonna they could find out, and they can basically liquefy them and scrap them." So after he basically tells her like, "Hey, you need to come back. You're detecting something." One of the other girls who's in the ship with her sends a drone out, and the giant worm jumps out at Mensah. We see on the other side of the hill, there's a bunch of those worms that have just died. They're getting pulled into what looks like a gravitational sphere or anti-grav sphere, and it's basically a black hole, and it's pulling stuff in there, and even destroys the drone. Of course, because these humans are stupid, they have no idea what destroyed their drone. But I guess you could say they're because they're free world hippies, whatever. They're down with the corporation. Maybe they've never watched sci-fi shows, so maybe they don't know that knowledge. Which is another problem I had with the series. It's like, none of you don't have. You're supposed to be scientists, but you don't understand a lot of that stuff. But then again, this is a fantasy world. I don't know what's established in it, what's not. I'm putting a lot of real world stuff into it. Maybe this world they don't have a lot of that stuff. Common sense. I don't know. But the show does point out, it's supposed to be comedy. So, and they are idiots. So it makes more sense that way. So if you're gonna watch a show, two things you're gonna do. It's only 30 minutes long, so basically it won't take that long. But all you gotta do is just grab your soda and just kind of turn your brain off and just enjoy the sarcastic comments from Alexander Skarsgård character from Murderbot, and enjoy what he does when he gets in fights and stuff. The rest of the cast, yes, they have a little speaking parts here, but they're kind of useless. And that's one of the problems I have with the show, though. I try not to put too much thought into it because whoever wrote this, the script, didn't put as much either. And that brings me to basically who the directors are. The directors of the show is Chris Weitz and Paul Weitz. You're wondering, who are these people? These are the guys who did American Pie. They're responsible for that. They're also responsible for About a Boy, The Little Fockers, Sir Keek, DeFreak, the vampire's assistant with Nicolas Cage. I believe it was Nicolas Cage. I don't remember. Fatherhood, Grandma. So this seems like a very low budget show, but unfortunately, it is entertaining, at least for me. Some of you might want more like Expanse. This is not going to be the Expanse. Don't get your hopes up. This is more like a less funny version of the Orville, which I still yet to see. I've seen parts of it, and from other people who learn love with that show, and then a lot of comic book nerds, that this show probably won't be high on their list to watch. But it is 4 episodes out right now, Apple Plus TV. It's going to be a list of 10 episodes. Basically, okay. So getting back to episode 2, Gurathin, that's the name of David's character, basically wants him to be, explain why it's acting outside his boundaries, and because he doesn't trust him, and this leans into basically they having a heart-to-heart a little bit, talk a little bit later on, but luckily for Murderbot, he is interrupted by what's going on, the events with Mensah. So then this goes to episode 3, where they're trying to figure out why there's what the sphere is. So they decided to reach out. The group has a consensus. We're going to go reach out to the other outpost. It's on the other side of the world. It's going to take them a couple hours to get there. They have these little drop ship, but it's almost like a what do you want to call it? Those drones. They have the little fans on them. It's a helicopter drop ship with 4 of them on there, and they fly over there. And Murderbot's basically against it. He says that he's because they couldn't figure out why they weren't pinging, why they weren't responding back. He said they're probably all dead, but he didn't need to tell them that though. But so they decide to go over there, and he accompanies them. And when they get over there, he pretty much tells them to stay behind because, they're annoying and they're going to get in his way. So he goes into the base, finds out everyone is pretty much slaughtered in this base. He doesn't know why. He sees one of the some of the drones or the more expensive sec units that are like him. They're on the ground. The only problem is leads to basically he drops his guard, even though he's basically in there for he could have left, but he said my curiosity is getting to me. Goes in there. One of the sec units basically wakes up and starts fighting him. We get this cool fight sequence with him where he talks about how he's able to he's able to predict what the other unit's going to be because they're pretty much the same robot, same manufacturer, and he pretty much gets the upper hand, and until he doesn't, and then he's basically gets knocked down, his power gets low, and he figures out what happened is that this 1 second unit has a master override, combat override little device is going to attach to the back of his neck where his insert port, and it basically is going to try to override him and make him turn against the humans. You're not sure if this is a plot by the corporation, what it's doing, or the reason why. We're left in the dark as far as who's controlling the sex and what the ulterior motive is. And eventually, he's about to taken over. It does get the device on his neck, but he's rescued by Mena, who the black woman in the middle down there. She ends up going in there against the wishes of all her other crew, who basically decided let's leave him. He's told us to leave if he doesn't come back in 10 minutes. She goes in there with a gun and she shoots the droid, the other SAC unit, and then he's telling her, he's like, I need to tell you something, but I can't remember why, because the device on his neck is preventing him from communicating or knowing that he even has a thing trying to take over him, and he ends up basically getting his brain scrambled. And of course, everything he starts talking about for the humor is the show. He has his drama show basically, and Rise and Fall of Sanctuary Moon. Here, where he believes he's on the ship. So it keeps flashing back between the show where he's in the uniform, Star Trek uniform, and then back in reality where he's basically the drone or the sec unit. Going on after that, they get out. We have the guy in the bottom left down there who basically thinks he's gonna I'm gonna screw this. I'm gonna go help Mensah, even though he's told not to by the lesbian couple. He goes up there with grabs a gun. He has no training whatsoever, the gun whatsoever, and he basically he knocks himself out by shooting the gun at the sec unit. Knocks himself out. Pretty much like you see with the clips of the girl when she has the Desert Eagle or the 50 cal, and they basically the knockback knocks him out. And anyway, so the sec unit comes out, and basically the evil sec unit basically is what attack Mensah and Alexander Skarsgård character, Murderbot. Only for the rest of the crew to show up in the drop ship, and they land basically their front wheel on it, or landing gear on the evil sec unit and crushing it. And then they get up, they raise up again, it's laying there, but then they do it real quick, but it's just about to move again, they just squish it. So, now that they know everyone's dead in this, we go to episode 4. Episode 4, basically, as it's called, Escape Velocity Protocol, and Murderbot basically is helpless, and it's still hallucinating that he's on Sanctuary Moon, and basically the crew is pretty much at this point concerned for him, his well-being. They want him, and he's telling him, hey, you need to basically get out of here, because now he knows there's a thing on his back stack, and he already uploaded pretty much 90%. He said within a minute, if you guys don't get here, I'm going to kill all of you. Just like exactly what happened to the crew in there. And of course, they said, well, no, we're not going to kill you. We'll find a way. So basically grabs Mensah's gun and shoots himself in the side, and pretty much knocks him out at the end of the episode. There's 5 more episodes. It looks like we're going to have Paul Weitz and Chris Weitz basically doing most of the writing for this. Tozer Frazier directed the last 2 episodes, 3 and 4, whereas actually it was Chris and Paul taking turns with 1 and 2. Like I said, overall, this is a quirky humor, new comedy in space, a little bit of woke elements, but anything I don't really consider. I mean, I'm not sure if they're making fun of the woke elements, because at this point, because as I said, the whole show seems like it's all satire. They even show you the process of how Alexander Skarsgård's character's sec units are made, little factory stuff, and some of the humor is kind of like dry or just weak, and it shouldn't be needed whatsoever. Had this been more of a serious show, I could see this be on sci-fi, but the fact that it's more of a comedy stuff, it kind of feels like a low budget, like Fox, direct to TV, regular basic TV, like show. I would say even not the same quality as Sarah Connor, as far as writing. For those who remember the Sarah Connor girl, the Terminator Chronicles, or Terminator Sarah Connor Chronicles. It came out early 2000s. This kind of feels like when it got towards the end of that series where they brought in Brian Austin Green and the writing just got bad. But overall, they said the show it's a good show. But as I said, take it with a grain of salt. It's meant to be satire, and I don't know. For me, I think I probably hit blinders on because I really like Alexander Skarsgård. His voice act, is basically. His acting is good. He's got that smooth, like charming voice, and I wish to see him in more stuff, and so I will sit through probably the next couple episodes. Whether we'll review them or not, that's up to you guys who are watching this. If you decide that you want more, let us know down in the comment section down below. I am going to be ending this right here now. As far as Tuesday goes, as far as what we're doing on Tuesday for movie reviews, it's to be determined yet. I have to get in touch with Rob, who currently has been doing some other stuff behind the scenes. And just want to thank you guys for watching, and just like I said, click that like button, hit the thumbs up, and we'll see you on Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. Until then, have a good night, guys, and thank you for watching. Later.